Let me start with a question that might make you uncomfortable. How much money is sitting idle in your bank account right now? Not invested, not growing, just sleeping. Most people think cash in the bank equals safety, stability, peace of mind. But here's the hard truth, and this is something I learned the hard way. Keeping over this amount in a bank is not safe. It's a silent financial mistake. And today, I want to explain why, so you don't pay the price later. Let's be clear, I am not saying you shouldn't have money in the bank. You absolutely should. Your emergency fund matters. Your short-term expenses matter. But once you cross that sensible amount, once your cash is no longer serving a purpose, you are no longer being cautious. You are being inefficient. And inefficiency is expensive. Here's the first hook most people ignore. Inflation is quietly stealing from you every single day. When inflation runs at 5, 6, or even 7%, and your bank pays you almost nothing, your money is shrinking in real terms. You might see the same number on your screen, but what that money can buy is less every year. That is not safety. That is slow financial erosion. The second mistake is psychological. When large sums sit in your bank account, they feel safe, but that comfort creates laziness. You delay learning about investing. You delay taking action. You delay building wealth. And time, especially when it comes to compounding, is the most valuable asset you will ever have. Every year you wait is a year you can never get back. Now here's something most people don't realize. In many countries, only a limited amount of your bank balance is actually protected. Anything above that limit, you are trusting the system blindly. And history has shown us again and again that systems can fail. Wealthy people understand this. That's why they don't park large sums of money in one place doing nothing. Smart money has a job. It works. It's diversified. Some of it is invested for growth, some for income, some for protection. The goal isn't to gamble, it's to be intentional. Your bank account is not a wealth building tool. It's a parking space, not a destination. Most people confuse safety with progress, and that single misunderstanding silently holds them back for years. When money sits in a bank account, untouched and unmoving, it creates the illusion of responsibility. You feel disciplined, you feel prepared, you feel in control. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people avoid feeling safe is not the same as moving forward. In fact, excessive safety often becomes the enemy of growth. The question isn't whether your money is protected today. The real question is whether it is preparing you for tomorrow. Think about this for a moment. If your career stayed exactly the same for the next 10 years, with no skill growth, no learning, and no progression, would you call that security? Of course not. You'd call it stagnation. Yet this is exactly what many people accept when it comes to their money. They allow it to sit still and then convince themselves that stillness equals intelligence. It doesn't. Stillness in a fast-moving world is quietly falling behind. Here's the first hook that changes perspective. Money that doesn't grow is actually taking a step backward every single year. Even when markets feel uncertain and investing feels uncomfortable, doing nothing guarantees one outcome: loss of potential. Growth always demands a level of discomfort. That's true in careers, in health, and especially in finances. The people who build wealth are not reckless. They simply understand that calculated movement is safer than permanent inaction. There is also a psychological trap hidden inside playing it safe. When your bank balance looks healthy, urgency disappears. The pressure to learn about investing fades. The motivation to improve your financial knowledge weakens. You tell yourself you'll figure it out later, but later is expensive. Later costs you time, and time is the one asset money can never buy back. Every year your money remains idle is a year of compounding you've permanently lost. Another uncomfortable reality is that banks are designed for transactions, not transformation. They exist to store money temporarily, not to multiply it meaningfully. When you rely on a bank account as your primary strategy, you're outsourcing your financial future to a system that was never built to grow your wealth. That's not caution, that's misplaced trust. Real safety comes from understanding how money works, not from avoiding responsibility for it. Here's a powerful shift in thinking. True security is not about avoiding risk, it's about reducing dependency. When your future relies solely on cash sitting still, your options shrink. When your money is working in multiple places, aligned with time, strategy, and purpose, you gain flexibility, you gain control, you gain resilience. That is what safety actually looks like. People often say, I just don't want to lose my money. But the bigger danger is never learning how to make it grow. Avoiding loss sounds smart until you realize that growth is how you stay ahead of life's rising costs, unexpected events, and long-term goals. Playing defense forever doesn't win the game. At some point, you have to step forward. The most successful individuals understand this early. They don't chase comfort, they build systems. They don't let fear dictate their choices, they let understanding guide them. They keep enough cash to stay stable, but not so much that it holds them back. Because deep down, they know this truth: money is a tool, and tools are meant to be used, not locked away. If your money only makes you feel calm, but doesn't move you closer to your future, it's time to question that sense of safety. Because growth doesn't come from standing still. It comes from intentional action, taken before comfort convinces you that waiting is wise. Inflation is one of the most misunderstood forces in personal finance because it doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't feel like a loss. There's no notification, no warning, no dramatic moment where you realize something has gone wrong. Yet it is working against you every single day. The real danger of inflation is not how aggressive it looks in the news, but how quietly it reshapes your financial reality while you're busy feeling comfortable. Here's a hook that most people never think about. If your money is not growing faster than inflation, you are taking a guaranteed loss. Not a possible loss, a guaranteed one. You may see the same balance in your bank account, but that number is lying to you. What that money can buy, your lifestyle, your freedom, your choices, is shrinking year after year. Inflation doesn't steal your money, it steals your purchasing power. And that distinction is exactly why so many people underestimate it. Think back a few years. The cost of rent, groceries, fuel, education, healthcare, almost everything essential has moved in one direction up. Now ask yourself an honest question. Has your bank interest kept pace with those increases? For most people, the answer is a clear no. This is where the silent damage happens. Your money hasn't disappeared, but the future it was supposed to support has become more expensive. What makes inflation especially dangerous is that it punishes patience when patience is misplaced. You're told to be responsible, to save diligently, to avoid risk. But inflation doesn't reward good intentions. It rewards strategy. Money sitting still during periods of rising prices is like standing on a downward, moving escalator and hoping you'll reach the top by waiting. Effortless loss feels comfortable, which is why it's so easy to ignore. There's also a false sense of stability that inflation creates. You feel secure because your bank balance hasn't dropped. You assume time is on your side, but time is only an ally when your money is compounding. Otherwise, time works against you. Every year inflation compounds too, and unlike you, it never takes a break. It doesn't care about your plans, your fears, or your hesitation. Here's another powerful hook: the longer inflation runs, the harder it becomes to catch up. Once purchasing power is lost, rebuilding it requires disproportionately more effort. You don't just need to earn more, you need to outpace rising costs consistently. This is why people who delay investing often feel like they're running faster, but going nowhere. Inflation has already moved the finish line. Many people think inflation is a short-term problem, something that spikes and then disappears. But historically, inflation is persistent. It ebbs and flows, but its long-term direction is clear. Ignoring it is not conservative, it's expensive. Wealthy individuals understand this, which is why they focus less on protecting nominal value and more on preserving real value. They don't ask, is my money safe? They ask, is my money keeping up with reality? Another overlooked truth is that inflation doesn't affect everyone equally. Those who rely solely on cash feel its full impact. Those who own assets, invest in growth, and allow their money to compound are far better positioned. Inflation widens the gap between people who understand it and people who underestimate it. Doing nothing is not a neutral choice. It is a decision with consequences. If inflation feels invisible, that's because it's designed that way. It works in percentages, not shocks, but small percentages compounded over time create massive outcomes. This is why awareness alone is not enough. Action is the only defense. Because the greatest financial mistake is not losing money in a bad decision. It's slowly losing it every year by pretending inflation isn't happening. Idle money feels harmless, almost responsible. It sits there quietly, causing no stress, demanding no decisions, asking nothing from you. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. The absence of urgency creates the illusion that nothing is being lost, when in reality, opportunity is slipping away in ways that are hard to see but impossible to recover. The true cost of idle money is not measured in what you lose today, but in what you never get the chance to build. Here's a hook that reframes everything. Opportunity has an expiry date. Every pound, dollar, or unit of currency sitting unused represents a moment in time that could have been working for you. Money is not just a store of value, it's a claim on future possibilities. When it remains idle, those possibilities quietly expire. You don't feel the loss immediately, but years later, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. Compounding is often described as powerful, but its real strength lies in consistency, not intensity. Small amounts invested early and allowed to grow steadily can outperform larger amounts invested later. Idle money delays that process, and delay is expensive. Not because markets demand perfection, but because time rewards participation. You don't need perfect timing to benefit from growth. You need presence. Idle money is absent from the game entirely. There's also a behavioral cost that rarely gets discussed. When money sits unused, it creates a false sense of readiness. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, better conditions, more clarity. But clarity rarely comes before action, it comes after. The habit of waiting trains your mind to avoid decisions, and avoidance becomes your default strategy. Over time, this erodes confidence, not just in investing, but in your ability to take control of your financial future. Another hook worth confronting is this: idle money keeps you busy feeling productive without actually making progress. Watching balances, moving funds between accounts, and feeling reassured by liquidity can feel like management, but it's often just motion without direction. Progress requires commitment. Commitment requires discomfort. Idle money protects you from discomfort, but it also protects you from growth. The world doesn't pause while you wait. Costs rise, goals evolve, responsibilities expand. The money that could have been growing alongside those changes stays frozen in time. And catching up later requires significantly more effort. This is why many people feel financially stuck despite earning more over the years. Their income increased, but their money never learned how to multiply. Idle money also limits learning. When your capital is engaged, even modestly, you are forced to understand markets, risk, and long-term thinking. You become more aware, more intentional, more strategic. When money stays idle, learning stays theoretical, and theory alone doesn't build confidence. Experience does. Without experience, fear remains dominant, and fear reinforces inaction. Perhaps the most overlooked cost of idle money is optionality. Money that grows creates choices. It gives you leverage over time, location, and lifestyle. Money that stays idle preserves the present but restricts the future. And while preserving the present feels sensible, it rarely aligns with long-term ambitions. Freedom is not built by standing still. It's built by allowing resources to evolve with you. Idle money doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't cause regret overnight. It simply waits while the world moves forward. And by the time its cost becomes obvious, the most valuable ingredient, time, has already been spent. Most people treat money as something to be stored, not directed. It sits in accounts without a clear reason, beyond the vague comfort of just in case. But money without a purpose quickly becomes money without impact. The moment you stop giving your money a role, it stops contributing to your future. Purpose is what turns currency into a strategy, and strategy is what separates intention from results. Here's a hook that challenges the way most people think. If you don't decide what your money is meant to do, life will decide for you. Expenses will absorb it, inflation will erode it, and time will quietly weaken its potential. Purpose protects money from randomness. It gives direction to every decision and clarity to every trade-off. Without that clarity, even large amounts of cash can fail to create meaningful progress. Purpose starts with understanding time. Not all money should be treated the same, because not all goals exist on the same timeline. Short-term needs require stability. Long-term goals demand growth. When everything is kept in one place, you force money meant for the future to behave like money needed today. That mismatch creates inefficiency. Purpose corrects this by aligning funds with timelines, allowing each portion of your money to do what it's best suited for. Another powerful shift happens when money is given a job. Money set aside for emergencies has one role: protection. Money allocated for near-term expenses has another: accessibility. Money reserved for long-term goals carries a different responsibility altogether: growth. When each category is clearly defined, decision-making becomes easier, not harder. You stop reacting emotionally and start acting intentionally. Confusion fades and confidence replaces it. Here's a hook many overlook: diversification is not about complexity, it's about resilience. Purpose-driven money naturally spreads across different functions, reducing reliance on any single outcome. This doesn't mean chasing every opportunity or overcomplicating your finances. It means understanding that stability and growth are not opposites. They are partners. When money has a purpose, it can protect you in the short term while still preparing you for the long term. Purpose also changes your relationship with risk. Instead of seeing risk as something to avoid, you learn to see it as something to manage. Money with a clear objective allows you to take calculated risks where appropriate and remain conservative where necessary. This balance is what professionals focus on. They don't eliminate uncertainty, they structure around it. Purpose gives you that structure. There's also a discipline that emerges when money is intentional. Spending becomes more thoughtful, saving becomes more meaningful, and investing becomes more strategic. You're no longer guessing or copying what others are doing. You're building a system that reflects your own goals and values. And systems outperform willpower every time. When money follows a plan, progress becomes repeatable. Perhaps the most empowering aspect of purposeful money is control. Not control in the sense of micromanaging every detail, but control through understanding. You know why your money is where it is. You know what it's meant to achieve. That clarity reduces anxiety and increases focus. Instead of worrying about whether you're doing enough, you start measuring whether your money is aligned. Money that has a purpose doesn't just sit there. It moves with intention, adapts over time, and grows alongside you. Without purpose, money becomes passive. With purpose, it becomes a tool for building options, stability, and long-term freedom. So remember, this cash is useful, but excess cash is costly. Keeping over this amount in a bank doesn't make you smarter or safer. It often makes you poorer in the long run. Start asking better questions. What is this money for? How long do I need it? Could it be working harder somewhere else? Because real financial confidence doesn't come from watching a balance sit still. It comes from knowing your money is aligned with your future. And once you understand that, you'll never look at your bank account the same way